Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is Charles with the Exodus Logistics Learning Center, America's #1 dispatcher and freight broker training. Today is Wednesday, the 11th of June, 2025. This is our Wednesday edition of our dispatcher one-on-one training for beginners. How's everyone doing? Hopefully everybody's doing okay. Um, let's see here. We got some people coming in a little bit later. What you see on the screen is from a dispatcher's uh, carrier agreement. An example, Mr. Ellis McGee, um, Freight Lanes Express. We will go through his dispatcher agreement as an example tonight, like we went through his broker carrier agreement last night in our broker training in detail. And hopefully he'll be in tonight so we can kind of lay out what's going on with this here. Give me 1 second, go back and check the email. Okay, so all right, so what I'll do is I'll probably download it too. So, but before we do that, before I wait for him to come in, uh, are there any questions? Hey, Jacqueline, and I see Contessa's here as well. Let me download this to the desktop so we can have a hard copy on it so we can actually see. All right.
Hey,
How's everybody doing? How you doing?
good. How are
Okay.
you?
I'm getting better. Everything's coming along. This is um, Mr. Ellis. I think this is his dispatch agreement. And this is 6/11/25. Yeah, how's it? Yeah, carrier agreement. Okay, good. So we'll open it up and here we go. And then enlarge it and go from there. Do you have a carrier yet, Jacqueline?
No.
What?
Um, no. What I guess I need help with, like, you know how you got your documents and then you need to load that to your page. So I guess I need that done. I got the LLC. I got I got all the other little things, but I just need the page and getting the documents set up with the page.
Okay,
So
so
that's where I am.
you need
Um,
some back end administrative stuff done.
right, the back end administrative stuff. That's where I'm kind of stuck at. And then I'm not like really computer savvy when it comes to, getting all that stuff together. So that's my biggest thing. So that's why I just still come to class and try to learn as much as I can learn. And eventually I'll get that. I remember you were saying that you use something called Wix.
That's the website, the
Right.
hosting platform of the.
Right. I just need to learn how to put my documents on my page where it's rolls in smoothly. And I also need to get that done. Once I get that done up and rolling, I need to open up a bank account.
So
Because
you
I
got to
really
drink
didn't.
8 ounces
Right.
in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
didn't want to, put that with my regular bank account. So I wanted to get that done. So it's just some, that administrative, like you said, administrative stuff is where I need to get the ball rolling.
Okay. Okay. So I may have to provide an additional service. I know we do the trainings, but it seems like people may need some time to actually get assistance with setting up their back end support as well.
Hmm.
Um, so I may have to add that in too, because I'm thinking about starting a uh, mentorship program with the training where I provide back-end support, whether it be the website, whether it be the documents. So, matter of fact, the website documents.
Well, I definitely will be interested in that. Definitely will be interested in that
It'll be
for
like
sure.
a monthly subscription to that. Because I met
Right.
multiple people, so I just need to decide, Zoom training, mentorship, access to our network of brokers, access to shippers, access to our dispatcher and freight broker resources, um, website and document management.
Absolutely.
So like a $99 a month kind of thing. We'll see how it goes. Take on.
I would definitely be interested in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Okay.
I'm just kind of.
How's that document? Is it okay?
Yeah, Mr. Ellis, I'm glad you're here. I was just talking to them about their had asked some questions. I was waiting for you to come in. So yeah, so what we're looking at is Mr. Ellis's just like we did last night for his broker side, for his broker carrier agreement. We're looking at Mr. Ellis' document on the dispatcher side for his Freight Lanes Express dispatch service. Okay. So this is his document for the agreement, the contract between the carrier and the dispatch service. So his logo, the image here, dispatcher Ellis McGee. Is that spelled correctly? McGee or McGee? Right there. I don't know if that's a typo or not.
Wait, no, that's right. McGehee.
Oh, McGee.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know. I thought it was McGee. McGee. Okay. Um, lead dispatcher, your phone number, your email, and then do you have a website yet for your dispatch service?
Not for the dispatch, for the brokering.
Okay. So the underline here, a little past the phone number, and then the underline here is a little bit past the email. I guess you could edit that a little bit, change that out. Yeah. Okay, so right here, let's go through this like we did with the broker carrier agreement last night in the broker training. Um, so this stays blank, right? This first paragraph, because the carrier, the truck driver, the owner operator, the person you will be dispatching for will be the one who fills this section out. So where it says the underline and it says carrier, owner operator, that they will put their name. Now, this document, you can make it fillable, right? So you can make it clickable, I should say, like the document you had the other night, Mr. Ellis. Um, and then they'll put their truck number, they'll put their trailer number, they'll put their motor carrier number, they'll put their DOT number. All that information is very necessary for you to have as a dispatch service because you're going to be utilizing um, that information as you deal with brokers, as you talk to freight brokers and or shippers to kind of procure freight for the carrier. You're going to need their motor carrier number and things like that. So hereby grants authorization and permission to, you've already pre-filled Freight Lanes Express. You can put an underline there. You can make it bold, make it stick out so you can see it, to act as my dispatcher or logistics manager, whatever you want to call yourself. Both terms don't have to be there, but it's fine. But you can either say dispatcher or logistics manager because that's literally what you're doing. You are managing logistics for that carrier. You're making sure that they're moving all over the country. You're finding them loads and you're keeping them running on good paying loads for whatever equipment type they have and whatever lanes you're running them in, either line haul or backhaul. Okay. Everybody understands what line haul and backhaul is. I'm talking in a way that someone who's brand new may not understand the term, so I want to make sure that's defined, right? So line hauls or head hauls are lanes outbound, and back hauls are coming back either to the area you left from or another area. Okay. So for the sole as a dispatcher logistics manager for the sole purpose of searching for and booking loads. That's what dispatchers mainly do. You do that through load boards, you do that through calling brokers, things like that. Um, Processing all broker paperwork. Well, what is the broker paperwork? There's two categories of broker paperwork. The first one is if you are getting your carrier set up for the first time with a broker because their MC number is not an MC number that's already in the system of that broker, and that is the broker carrier agreement. That's the initial setup packet, onboard packet, carrier packet that the brokers send to you, the dispatcher, to get your carrier started and get them approved. So that's the first category of broker paperwork. The second category of broker paperwork is once your carrier is approved by that brokerage, then they need to send you the rate confirmation or the load confirmation on that specific load that you may have called them about when you initiated that phone call from the load board when you saw a load that met the requirements of your carrier. So does everybody understand what I just said? You got it? So the two paperwork categories that you need when you're dealing with a freight broker and your carrier, right? Okay. You need a broker carrier agreement to get them set up, and you need the rate confirmation to officially book a specific load, right? You need the broker carrier agreement to get set up. You only need to do that one time per broker for your carrier. You need different rate confirmations for different loads that you book for that broker. You may book 3 loads. You're going to need 3 different rate confirmations. Bless you, Mr. Ellis.
Is that a document? The rate confirmation?
It is. So right here, let's go to forms and documents. The two broker paperwork, the broker's onboarding documents. Now these are just for viewing purposes, so you'll know what they look like. The first one, remember in the dispatcher agreement, process all broker paperwork. Well, the first broker paperwork is what we did for you yesterday, your broker carrier agreement, right?
Right.
So that's the first broker paperwork that's needed by a broker to approve and get a carrier onboarded to their brokerage. They got to get this filled out, the agreement. They got to get a copy of their MC authority, their certificate of insurance, their W-9, and to vet that carrier and to bring them under their brokerage legally, right? So that's the first of the broker paperwork. Now, this, from a dispatcher's perspective, you need to get this done first before you can, there's only one way to do it. You got to do the broker care. If your carrier's MC is not a part of a particular brokerage's company, that they're not an approved carrier already, then the first paperwork to get started to get them approved is the broker carrier agreement to get them in the system, to get them set up and approved. You fill this out, and then you send the broker, in addition to returning this completed agreement, you send them the broker, you send them copies of your carrier's MC authority, your carrier's certificate of insurance, and your carrier's W-9 because they need to approve that carrier. They need, not only do they need the contract back, but they need to verify that the carrier is who they say they are. So the MC authority does that. They need to verify that they have the proper coverage to transport that broker's freight for the broker's customer. So they need the insurance type correctly. So that's why the certificate of insurance is required. And then they need to verify that they are a company. So they have an EIN and they are an entity, they are a business. So that's what the W-9 is for. So this is the broker carrier agreement. That's the first of the broker paperwork types. The second broker paperwork is the load or the rate confirmation for a specific load, right? So every load for that particular broker that you just got set up with, or you just got your carrier set up with and approved for, every load that you book with that broker going forward requires its own rate confirmation because each load you book is going in a different direction. It could be a
Right.
different.
Yeah, is that coming from the broker to the dispatcher?
That's correct. So too is
So the
the
broker sending that to the dispatcher.
That's correct. The first thing the broker sends to the dispatcher is the broker carrier agreement, assuming that the carrier's MC number that you're dispatching for is not an already approved carrier under that brokerage. So you got to get set up first. So the first step is the broker carrier agreement along with those other documents, MC, certificate of insurance, W-9. Okay. And then the second document the broker will send this, either attach it to an email or send you a link to an onboarding platform where you can just click and put in your carrier's MC, and it populates with public data, and then you fill out the rest of it. So that's a faster process. It's an onboarding process. Assure Assist, My Carrier Pack, RMIS. Those are three different onboarding software tools that's used by brokers nowadays. But if a broker does not have the onboarding tool, they'll just simply attach this PDF to an email and send it to you, the dispatcher, so you can get started with that process of filling it out on behalf of your carrier. And since you, the dispatcher, hopefully you, the dispatcher, already have a limited power of attorney between you and that carrier, then you are able to legally fill out the paperwork on behalf of the carrier.
Okay, so wait, what was the name of the software again?
So the onboarding software that most brokers are using now, they're catching up to the 21st century, is called, I'm gonna put it in the chat. So Assure Assist, if I can spell it correctly. That's number one. My Carrier Packet or Packets, I think it's an S on it. That's number two. And the most popular one is RMIS, which is Register or Registry Monitoring Insurance Service.
Okay, yeah, that's on Truck Stop.
Right. That's an integration with Truck Stop. Yeah, they have a partnership. RMIS is, of the three, RMIS is the most popular one. It's the most user-friendly one. So that's probably why. I think that may have it also. So those are the three. And these are let me put this here. These are onboarding software used by brokers. And their onboarding software used by brokers to quickly, it speeds up the onboarding process, basically, because all they do is send you a link to their portal, and then it points to their portal. You click the link and you go to their portal and you put in your MC or DOT number of the carrier, and it syncs with the FMCSA's website and auto-populates the information, because most of the information from the MC or DOT of your carrier from FMCSA is public data. Because when your carrier applied to have an authority, remember their data is listed in the register of the FMCSA. So it'll populate most of that data, but you have to fill in some of the other blanks too, like who's the dispatcher and all these other things. So you have to maybe 5-10 minutes tops, as opposed to 25-30 minutes. So dispatchers can use Truck Stop if they use their carrier's MC or their login. I think Truck Stop, Jennifer, I'm not sure if they're offering a version login for dispatchers. I will have to check into that, but I know it's a load board for brokers and motor carriers. So if your carrier has a login to Truck Stop, let's say you get a carrier to dispatch for, and they already have a login to Truck Stop, then they may just share their username and password with you. Or if your carrier does not have a login to Truck Stop and you want to use Truck Stop, maybe you can ask your carrier to use their MC to purchase a subscription to Truck Stop and then use that to find loads for your carrier. Okay. So again, back to the dispatch agreement, the section right here where it says process all broker paperwork. So there's two types of broker paperwork again: the broker carrier agreement and the rate confirmation or the load confirmation, which is right here. Right. And the load confirmation is when you book a load with your carrier, the broker's going to send you the load confirmation, the details of the load, so your carrier knows where it's being picked up at, who the point of contact is at the shipper, and things of that nature. The load number, the BOL number, the reference number, the number of pallets, piece count, weight, what the commodity is, as much information and detailed as possible so your carrier can be successful in transporting that freight for that broker so that they can get paid. You see? So, and if it has multiple stops and things like that. So, all right. So those are the two broker paperwork types. That's where we are right here. So, hereby grants authorization or permission to Freight Lanes Express. If I were you, Mr. Ellis, I would underline and bold that so it can stand out.
Okay.
Okay. And I would fix the line in here, just clean this up a little bit. Right here, the line here, and the line here. This is because your email is 671flx@gmail, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the underline should only be for the email, right? And then the email, I mean the word email, I should say.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and then to act as my dispatcher logistics manager for the sole purpose of searching for and booking loads. Well, again, you do that through the load boards. Process all broker paperwork. You do that once you find a load of a broker from the load board, and you do the broker carrier agreement and the rate comp. And then obtaining and or submitting all necessary documents required. Well, the necessary documents required by a broker for your carrier to book the load is they need to vet and qualify that carrier. So the qualifying documents, according to our training, our teachings, are the MC number, right here, the carrier onboarding documents, MC authority, the certificate of insurance, and the W-9. And then extra documents that are optional, assuming that the carrier or not has a factoring company, would be the credit application of the factoring company and the notice of assignment. So what do these look like, right? The MC authority, for those who may have seen this for the first time, these are qualifying documents and you as a dispatch service, when you work with the carriers, you onboard them to your company, not onboard them to the broker, but when you get them set up with your company to work with them, you want to have copies of these documents in your possession prior to calling the brokers, right? It would make sense to have everything you need up front. So when you deal with the broker, you don't have to be chasing the carrier down to get these documents. Does that make sense? Right? Does that make sense? I want to make sure everybody's with me.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, the MC certificate or the MC authority is a certificate that the FMCSA issues to a motor carrier who has applied correctly for an operating authority as a common carrier of property except household goods. This piece of document says that they did that. They applied for it correctly and they got issued a certificate saying that this certificate is evidence of the carrier's authority to engage in transportation as a common carrier of property except household goods. Okay. So that's number one, that you as a dispatch service would need a copy of, not the original, but a copy of from your carrier, from your truck driver, your owner operator that you're dispatching for. That's number one. Number two, that you would need a copy of you would need a copy of their certificate of insurance. Well, not only does the carrier need to have an authority to transport freight, but they need to have insurance to be able to cover what they have the authority to transport. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. And I say it like that because I want to make sure it's basic and clear and concise to the point, right? Why be a motor carrier with an authority to carry freight, but you don't have the proper insurance to cover what you are carrying? Just like you have a driver's license, it gives you the legal right to drive. So driving is a right, not a privilege. I mean, I'm sorry, it's a privilege, not a right to drive, but you still need insurance to be covered. So the same thing here in transportation. Motor carriers have a authority to transport the freight, but they still need a certificate for liability and cargo to be able to cover what's on their trailers when they are transporting the freight. So you, as a dispatch service, would want a copy of that carrier's certificate of insurance. And by the way, if a motor carrier that you're trying to get into an agreement with cannot provide you an MC certificate that they have an authority or a certificate of insurance that they can't give you a copy of either one, what should you do?
Not work them.
Not work with them. That's correct. Because you're not going to be able to.
I was going to say run.
Well, yeah, that too. Yeah, the proverbial because any broker, every broker you try to book a load for with them cannot qualify them because they don't have the credentials to run the loads for the broker's customers, that freight. They don't have the authority, nor do they have the insurance. So why would a broker, if they're smart, a load to an uninsured, unauthorized truck driver?
Right.
That doesn't make sense. You're unauthorized to carry it, and you're not insured. So that's failure right there. That's twice failure, right? So, number three, another document you need is a W-9, the carrier's W-9, saying that they are a legitimate trucking company. They have an EIN attached to their business name, not their social, but their EIN. They're an entity, a legitimate business, whether they're S Corp, LLC, whatever structure they are, but they have an EIN attached to their company. So now you know you're dealing with someone who's legitimate. So this is a way for you as a dispatch company to pre-vet your truck drivers coming to your business before you even send them to a broker to book a load, right? So you're doing your preliminary qualify. So indirectly, you're doing the broker a favor because you're qualifying them before they come into your company. So when you do go to a broker and book a load for them, they've already passed with flying colors because they met your requirements. So stands to reason they're going to meet the broker's requirements, right? Because you've already pre-qualified them. You got a copy of their MC, you got their certificate of insurance, you got their W-9, right? So indirectly, you're doing the broker a favor. And they'll notice that. They'll love that. They're like, yeah, your carriers are qualified. They're good, right? So, and then if your broker, if your carrier that you're dealing with, that you're dispatching for, um, has a factoring company. What is a factoring company? A factoring company purchases they provide upfront cash flow to help carriers and brokers because factoring companies' clients are either the motor carriers or the freight brokers. But we're talking about carriers now in the sense of dispatching and carriers. So the client in this example will be the carrier. So if the carrier has a factoring company, they provide the upfront money for a fee to help keep carriers' cash flow going up front. Now, factoring companies have requirements. So they'll do a credit check on the broker to verify that the broker pays their invoices before they give the carrier the upfront money. They want to make sure that they get the money on the back end from the broker. And the credit check serves that purpose. The credit check goes from the factoring company through you, the dispatcher. You'll get a blank copy of it from your carrier because they have access to their factoring company information, their portal. They'll send you a blank copy of the credit application, and then you just use that blank copy to send copies of copies to every broker you're going to be dealing with. That credit check application serves the purpose of going to the broker. The broker knows what to do with it. They're used to getting credit checks from factoring companies because they know certain carriers work with factoring companies. So they know the process. So it's not confusing. Your role only in this equation when it comes to the factoring company and the credit application is simply to send it from you that you've gotten a copy of from your carrier to the broker. And then that's it. The broker will fill it out and they'll return it to the factory company because usually at the bottom of the application is a fax number or an email to send it back to the broker. So you're out of that equation after that point. Simple. Yep. And our factoring company that we have is Seven Oaks with Monica Case. Yes. So we have a representative, and then there's another guy who's trying to come on board with us, Wade Fenton at OTR. They're a good factoring company too, but I've been so committed to Monica in Seven Oaks, and she's done such a great job that I'm going to continue to keep her exclusive to the Exodus Logistics Learning Center. I'm not going to bring another factoring company in because she does great work. There's no point, right? So, but yes, that's what factoring does. So the credit check is they'll make sure that the brokers are favorable, that there is no issues of failure to pay or breach of contract by the brokers in relation to the carrier not paying them. There is no claims against, there has been no claims filed against any brokers or anything like that. That's what the factoring company checks because they want to have a guarantee that they're going to get their money because they're extending a certain percentage of the gross amount of that particular load that's being booked to the carrier up front. So they want to make sure they get their money on the back end, right? So, and then the other document from the factoring company is letting the broker know that they are working with the carrier, and that's called the notice of assignment. Well, the notice of assignment says, hey, all invoices that are payable by you, Mr. Broker, to the carrier, which is our client, are now payable to us, the factoring company. And we have this pre-existing agreement between us, the factoring company, and the motor carrier that says it. So now they are just acknowledging to the broker that they have stepped in place of the carrier, and all invoices that are payable to the carrier for delivery, the PODs, are now payable to us because we've already given them a certain percentage of the upfront money. That's it. Okay? That's what factoring does. It's kind of like those.
So a quick question on those two documents. I'm getting that from the factoring company and sending it to my carrier so he can fill it out.
No,
And then it goes back to the broker.
no. You're talking about the credit.
Or
You're talking about the credit
or I
application.
right. Or am I filling it out based on because I have the limited power of attorney? Can I fill that paperwork out and then send it to the broker? How does
No.
that process work?
So when it comes to factoring, if you get a carrier who is working with a factoring company prior to you even knowing that carrier, let's say you get them on board to your dispatch service and they have already a factoring company, there is no filling out of any paperwork by you, the dispatcher, when it comes to your carrier who has a factoring company. What the carrier is going to have is they're going to send you when you ask for a copy of their MC, a copy of their certificate of insurance, and a copy of their W-9, you also want to ask for a copy of a blank credit application from their factoring company and a copy of that factoring company's notice of assignment. The purpose of the blank copy of the credit application from their factoring company is for you to send to each and every broker you're going to be booking loads for that carrier so that the credit application can qualify and vet that broker. That's the credit application piece of the factoring company. The notice of assignment piece, which is on your screen, is saying it is just a document identifying to the broker that this factoring company is working with this carrier. That's it. There's nothing to be filled out. It's just a document verifying that the carrier that you're booking a load for with this broker has factoring. And contractually, all invoices that the broker owed to the carrier for loads delivered should be paid to the factoring company now because again, the factoring company stepped in and paid the carrier up front. So when the carrier delivers a load and they get a POD signed for proof of delivery, they're going to send it to the factoring company, and the factoring company is going to pay them 24 to 48 hours after delivery. They'll pay them, let's say the load was $3,000. The factoring company can, like in the case of Seven Oaks, they can give up to 90% of that gross amount of that load. So 90% of $3,000 is $2,700. So they'll pay up front $2,700 to the carrier, the factoring company will, and put the other 300 in reserve on hold until the broker pays them on the back end according to the net payment terms of the broker. Factoring companies can afford to wait the payment terms of a broker. They have enough cash flow to give the money up front to the carrier and get the money on the back end from the broker. They have a large amount of cash flow. And that's how they make their money. They'll charge a percentage to upfront money, just like those payday loan places you go to. You'll go and borrow against your 2-week paycheck. You'll get some $500 loan, and they'll give you the $500, and then when you get your check 2 weeks later, you'll pay that payday loan back plus interest. The same thing holds true with the concept of a factoring company. Okay? So there's nothing to fill out by you, the dispatcher, when it comes to the factoring company piece. All you do is transfer the paperwork from that you received from your carrier to each and every different broker you're going to be booking loads for that carrier. That's it. There's nothing to fill out.
And I would get that from, say if I'm dealing with Seven Oaks, I would get that from Seven Oaks.
Nope.
Give it to my carrier.
Oh, your carrier would get it from Seven Oaks.
My carrier would get it from Seven Oaks. Okay.
And give it to
There we
you.
go. Okay. There we go.
Because
Okay.
right, because you cannot contractually get it from Seven Oaks because you're not a client of Seven Oaks. Your carrier.
Right. I'm just a dispatcher. I'm not the carrier.
Right,
I
they're the
got you.
client. So the client legally gets it from Seven Oaks or whatever factoring company, gives you a
Right.
copy of it. You'll have it in your digital filing cabinet for that particular carrier or carriers, and then you just, as you get brokers that you book loads for that particular carrier, you will send that broker along with a copy, the MC, certificate of insurance, and W-9. You will send a copy of the credit application so that they can run a credit check on the broker, and you'll send a copy of the notice of assignment so that the broker can be identified as seeing that this carrier has a factoring company.
And every load that I book with, if it's a different broker, they have to get that information as well, correct?
That's correct. You would want to,
Right. Okay. Okay.
yeah, it's your job as a dispatcher to let the broker know that this carrier has factoring, because the carrier does have factoring. If you have a carrier who has a factoring company and you've gotten all the necessary documents from your carrier prior to booking a load with a broker, then of course you would want to send a copy, in addition to sending the MC, certificate of insurance, and W-9 to the broker to
Right.
get them set up. You're going to send the credit application as well as the notice of assignment also to the broker. Okay.
Okay.
And none of these things you send to the broker, nothing is filled out. These are copies of documents that you send to the broker. The only thing you as a dispatcher will complete and fill out is one of two documents, and maybe both. If your carrier's MC number is not an already approved carrier for that any particular broker, then the first document you're going to fill out, because you have a limited power of attorney notarized giving you authorization to do so, the first document you will fill out is the broker carrier agreement, setting up your carrier with a particular broker. And you're not putting your information in there, you're putting your carrier's information. You're signing and printing their information, not yours. Because remember, this is a broker carrier agreement, not a broker dispatcher agreement. Okay? That's the first document. The second document will be the rate confirmation to verify and confirm and officially book a particular load. That's the second document. That's the process. Once you do this over and over again and repetitiously, it's the same thing over and over again. The only thing that changes are the brokers and the carriers.
Repetitive. Okay.
Right. The process is the same. That's what I love
Okay.
about it. The process is always the same. It's just different brokers, different rate confirmations, different factoring companies. But the process, and that's the important piece that I want you guys to gather to understand
Yes,
the process.
right.
You can plug and play different brokers and carriers, but as long as you understand the concept of the process, you'll be okay.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
So Charles, what about the credit card application? Should you have them to the carrier to fill that out, or just wait on that?
If you want to add that piece to it's a choice of yours. If you want to add that piece to your dispatching service because you feel that you may have if your carrier doesn't have a factoring company, or if they do have a factoring company, but the factoring company doesn't provide a service of paying the dispatcher in addition to when they pay the carrier, then you can add the piece. Let me go to I think it's under tools and resources. You can add the credit card authorization piece to help back up you getting paid if the carrier doesn't pay you when they should pay you, you're authorized to charge their card only for that purpose. If you try to charge a card outside of that, that's a federal offense. But you charge. So let's go to credit card authorization form. So you could put this in your dispatch contract with a carrier and add it in there for them to either opt in or opt out. If they opt in, so up here, first of all, this will have all your dispatch information, your company name, address, city, state, and zip, email, and phone number. Then they can opt in as a show of trust, saying, okay, if I don't pay you, I opt in, authorizing you to charge my credit card that I'll put in here and have on file. So by opting in, I authorize regularly scheduled charges to my credit card or bank account. These charges will appear on my credit card or bank statement. Prior to each charge, an invoice, which is by you, the dispatcher, will be sent via email for verification and approval. So you got to let them know that you're getting ready to charge your card because they missed a payment, right?
Okay, now in this particular situation right here, now don't you have a system in place where that allows you to take credit card payments through your business account?
That's correct. That is correct. You also you have to have it's a two-way communication. You have to have in your bank account the ability to take payments via credit card, not just checks or cash or whatever, like PayPal, for example. You can have PayPal, Square, Chime, whatever you use to have a credit card payment process. And most business accounts do, well, they should have the option because it's a common thing. Credit card payments are common these days, as opposed to check.
I have that set up. I was just curious because I was looking at the paper. Like, well, wait a minute, hold on. Let me just I want to clear that part up.
Right.
As far as this paper, but you have to. So this document right here is a part of the packet that
you can
broker.
add this into your dispatcher packet if you want to, as a reassurance that you're going to get paid, as opposed to chasing the carrier down because you booked a load for them 3 weeks ago and they still haven't paid you yet.
Got you. Okay.
So and that carrier doesn't have a factoring company, or they do have a factoring company, but the factoring company doesn't have the feature of paying the dispatcher the same time as paying the carrier, like Seven Oaks does.
Right. Now, in this case here, so with this document here, so this has to be pre-filled out as well by them, of course, as they send it back to you.
Correct. So it'll be put in the packet along with the dispatch agreement, carrier profile, and limited power of attorney. You just add this piece in there as well. So when they return that to you, they'll return this as well, and they'll fill it out. Right here, I trucking company or carrier, ABC Trucking, do hereby authorize Freight Lanes Express to process and charge my credit card or bank account for the amount owed each week. Or you can say however you want to say, or amount owed due now, or amount owed for this particular load, or whatever. You structure and change that paperwork, the verbiage, how you see fit. This is just a template to get you started. This payment is for dispatching services provided. And then right here in these boxes, cardholder name, it could be the name of the owner operator, their real name, first and last name, or their company name, ABC Trucking. The card type, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or Discover. They'll circle one of them. Usually it's a Visa card. So if it starts with a 4, if the card number starts, I don't know if you guys know this, but if the credit card number starts with a 4, it's a Visa. If it starts with a 3, it's a MasterCard. If it starts with a 5, it's a Discover. I don't know if you know that the type of credit card, the first number that it starts with tells the type of credit card it is. Okay. And then they'll put the card number in, they'll put the expiration and the 3-digit CVV number and their billing address. And so when you go to charge it, you'll just put that information in when you go to your thing, your invoicing, and then pay it right there. How would the dispatcher know if their factoring company will pay you directly? You asked them. You asked them, hey, do you have a feature where I'm a dispatcher for this company, and you pay us at the same time that you pay the carrier? Do you have that feature? Because some factoring companies do and some do not. Yeah, you just ask them. They may say it on their website, or you just ask them. Seven Oaks, Seven Oaks is very transparent. They do. So because Seven Oaks gives you, they provide an affiliate, they'll pay you a certain percentage to bring a carrier to them, and they'll provide that service of paying you once that carrier starts submitting invoices for payment and turn in their first POD. They'll even let you know via email, hey, your carrier just submitted their first POD with us to be paid. How do you want to be paid? We need your routing. Can you send us a voided check or provide us with a routing number and account number so we can deposit the funds, your 10%, your 8%, whatever it is, into your account because your carrier turned in their first POD of delivery, an invoice. So, and then down here, it says, I understand that this authorization will remain in effect until I cancel it in writing, and I agree to notify the carrier trucking company in writing of any changes in my account information. And then I certify that I am an authorized user of this credit card or bank and will not dispute these. This is the carrier talking now. These scheduled transactions with my bank or credit card company, so long as the transactions corresponds to the terms indicated in this authorization. In other words, as long as you charging them for the work that you did and not trying to charge them for something else, then the carrier is not going to dispute that, right? It is when you try to go outside of that, and I can't imagine you doing that because again, you're breaking the law, and that's a federal offense. So the carrier will print their name, sign their name, and then date it. So that is the credit card authorization form. You can include that in your, now most carriers probably won't do this. They'll say, man, I'm not going to give you authorization to charge my car. I'm just going to pay you. Well, depending on the conversation and the mood of the conversation and how you feel about that conversation, you may not feel that this is a carrier that's going to pay you after doing these loads, right? If that's the case, then what's the point of even working with them, right? I ask myself, but this is just a safety net for the dispatcher to kind of guarantee payment when the carrier breaches the contract, when they don't want to pay. Okay.
Now, and then on that card, because, you know, I was just giving my next point is sometimes the, you know, carriers, again, just how they think, they may not want to put their credit card up there.
Right.
You know, you want to run into that situation too.
Right. So you can add a clause. That's a very good point, Mr. Ellis. So you could add a clause in there to say that this information is only exclusive between the dispatcher and no one else. And if this information gets leaked out and you violate privacy of that credit card information, you could be held liable or something to that effect. In other words, it's only exclusive to this document and it should not be shared with anyone else. Otherwise, it's a breach of contract and it voids payment.
Even with that in there, they still just how some people just think like that.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
And, you know, or, you know, for whatever reason, like I said, because you don't know, they might be one of those people that don't want to pay and they want to make sure that you have no other means of getting payment from them.
Right. Right. That's true. So that's where the credit card authorization form is under tools and resources. So back to the actual dispatcher agreement. So we just finished the first, this paragraph. So all necessary documents in order to expedite loads and dispatch via telephone, fax, or email. So, any questions about that paragraph? Right there. Mr. Ellis, I just underline and bold your company name there. That'll be fine. All right, so we're good on the first paragraph right there, or this, yeah, the first paragraph. So the second paragraph, let's explain this a little bit here. All billing, invoicing, and collections of revenue from shippers, brokers, and or factoring companies, which are the three main ways that truck drivers get paid. If they get a load directly from a shipper, okay, if they get a load through you, through a broker, or if they have a factoring company and you booked a load with a broker and you use their factoring company, those are the three ways that they get paid. So all billing, invoicing, and collections of revenue from those three entities are the sole responsibility of the carrier trucking company, which it should be. It's their company, right? Unless you, the dispatcher, in this case, Freight Lanes Express, unless you and the trucking company have arranged and agreed upon additional services provided to the trucking company by you, the dispatch service. In other words, if you stepped in and said, in addition to me just dispatching for you, I can help you with billing, invoicing, and collections of revenue for an additional fee, right? So that's what this paragraph says. But if you don't do that, then it's the sole responsibility of the carrier to handle their billing, invoicing, and collection of revenue because they are the trucking company. So that's what it's there for. They are supposed to handle their billing, invoicing, and collection of revenue. Otherwise, they won't be a good trucking company. But if you offer additional services, you should be compensated for that because your time is just as important as anyone else's, right? And don't diminish that. So that's this paragraph here. That's all it's saying. I just put it in big bold letters to kind of emphasize that, right? But is everybody good on that paragraph?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. So next paragraph or sentence, I guess. If revenue for a shipment or shipments or load or loads or however you want to call it, you can change the word verbiage, is uncollected. In other words, if the three entities that pay the carrier, shipper, broker, or factoring company, does not pay them for that shipment, uncollected, then you, Mr. Ellis, I would say bold and underline everywhere where it says Freight Lanes Express, bold and underline so it can stick out. All right. So if revenue for a shipment or shipments or load or loads is uncollected by any of those three entities, then the dispatching company, in this case, Freight Lanes Express, will be held harmless and no penalty or deduction of fees that's due to you, dispatch service, will be made. In other words, it's not your fault, dispatch service, that a shipper, broker, or factoring company did not pay your carrier for services rendered. That has nothing to do with the dispatch service. You booked the load, you did your job. You cannot control whether a shipper, broker, or factoring company paid that carrier. It's something that the shipper or the carrier has that's going on. Maybe the carrier did something that breached the contract and warrant non-payment. Again, that has nothing to do with the dispatch service. You did your part, so you're out of that equation. Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
Okay. But it needs to be verbalized. So, next line. Freight Lanes Express, or whatever you call yourself as a dispatch service, will be held harmless in the event of any and all claims filed, right? I should put filed there. And the carrier trucking company will still be obligated to pay you, the dispatch services, for services rendered. You still get paid because you rendered the service. You cannot control whether a carrier did something to warrant some kind of claim being filed. So, for example, carrier picks up a load that you booked for them through a broker from a shipper. They transport it safely and securely to the receiver for delivery. Receiver opens it up to verify everything was good, but it was not. Pallets are slid over, freight's damaged. So the receiver either rejected the total truckload or they accepted some of the freight that was good, kind of salvaged some stuff, and then they filed a claim against the damaged freight to kind of recoup their money. That happens all the time. None of that has to do with you, the dispatcher. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
Correct. Absolutely. Because do you still feel you need to get paid?
Of course, you did your part.
There you go. Carrier trucking company will still be obligated to pay for services rendered. Now, you could be gracious and say, hey, man, since we're not going to pay you, I'll say, okay, you don't got to pay me, man. It's a small load. We'll just move on to the next one, and I'll make up the money on the back end with you. Kind of a way to kind of keep the carrier, but legally, you are obligated to get paid. You can show grace and mercy by not doing it. That's fine. That's completely up to you because you guys are all individual dispatch services. So whatever decision you make, you are, that's your decision, right? So, but does everybody understand that sentence right there, that next sentence?
Yes.
Okay. Now, services, Services include. So Mr. Ellis did his like this. Services include. His rate is 8%. Included. I don't know if this include. Oh, what's included? 1% optional, flat fee, 75 optional. Okay, so this is your rates. So basically, what you're saying is the service fee for your service is 8%. You're charging 8% as opposed to a flat fee for the week. Correct? 8% per 8% per load.
Per
8%.
load.
Okay. And then services provided. 24/7 phone support. I like this how it's designed right here. And so you put it right here too, right here. Services provided, 8%. But services provided, phone support included, 24/7, carrier packet included, booking loads, rate negotiation, basically all things that dispatchers do. So right here you put invoicing, billing services included. So you put that there. Maybe you should revisit your percentage because that's extra work, right? Unless you want to roll that into as a way of marketing your 8%. Factoring paperwork, not included. Okay, you made that clear. And then if the compliance referral agent, not included, because that's a trucking concept and not a dispatching concept. You do not handle IFTA. IFTA is the International Fuel Tax Agreement. For each state that runs the fuel, they have different fuel taxes for entering each state. And the carrier needs to make sure that's where they keep the receipts. So every state they run their fuel in, they're going to add up their costs for that fuel for that state. And then whatever percentage that state charged for, they're going to pay the tax on that. Okay.
So on the invoicing and billing services, so that is optional to be included or not.
Correct. That is totally up to you.
Probably better that they do their own invoicing.
Unless you have some invoicing experience, like with another, you may have come from a corporation that handled invoicing and billing. You may have done it before, bookkeeping or whatever. You may have some accounting experience.
No, I'll change that because it's better that because again, just any mistakes, it's not on me.
Right. You don't want to play people's money. Correct. Right. Now, maybe over time, as you build a relationship with this carrier, let's say 6 months, a year, you may want to incorporate gradually, piecemeal it into your services, billing, start with billing.
I would think, and then again, I mean, like I say, it can go either way, but I would think, the more popular thing is that a carrier would want to do their own billing because, they can kind of, like you said, let them count their own money.
Right. Number one. But number two, I'll play devil's advocate. You got some carriers who don't even know how to handle their books. So you can be a value add to them by helping them with that and then charge you for that service. So you got some carriers who are upside down. If they run their trucks and they're making their money, but when it's time to do their taxes, they got some issues going on.
Well, maybe I should just take out included and put optional.
There you go, optional. And then you can kind of piecemeal it. You can probably do maybe after 6 months, you can kind of help them with billing. That's the easy part, or invoicing, and then finally collection of revenue. How the revenue is going to be collected. It's going to be directly deposited into the trucking company's business account. You may not have access to that, but at least you control the flow of it into the account, and then the carrier can see it. So something to think about after 6 months. Let's say if you build a great relationship with that carrier over time, you may offer that as a service later on. Never know. All right. And then you already put the service fee for freight lanes express will be 8% per load. Okay, that's a good starting point. Does the factoring company keep a record of what the truck driver earned over the year? Yes and no. Indirectly, they can, because if they're audited by the IRS, they'll show all the gross receivables, the PODs that they've gotten in. They'll just simply add that up, but they're not required to do that. That's the truck driver's job. Okay. And as you ask prior to that, you ask what happens to the damaged load on the truck. Well, either the receiver could reject the load, and then the shipper will say, "Well, bring the load back," or just get rid of it, depending on what the commodity is. If it's perishable, they'll probably get rid of it because it can't be replaced because it's damaged. If it's something that's like furniture or something like that can be sent back and replaced, then they'll just have the driver bring it back. Now, if they ask the driver to bring it back, then you, the dispatcher, let that driver know, "Hey, man, have the broker send you a rate confirmation for some money to bring it back. You're not bringing it back for free, burning fuel and all that stuff, right?" So That's how that goes. So now, here's a note. This fee for dispatch services may also include the dispatcher contracting dedicated freight lanes for the carrier. In other words, over time, as you dispatch for a carrier, you may come across a broker that may present to you dedicated or consistent loads over and over again. In other words, picking up from the same place, delivering to the same place, consistent freight, dedicated freight. If you land that and you happen to get it with that broker, then you'll consistently get the 8% of that. Now you ain't got to worry about finding them loads. You got dedicated freight, and you're going to constantly get your 8% of that dedicated lane. You ain't got to go on the spot market load board trying to find something. You've landed dedicated freight. What you may have to do is try to find them back hauls, because the dedicated freight may only be line haul, may only be from the shipper to the receiver. But getting out of there and getting somewhere else, maybe you may have to jump on the load board and try to do that. But that's the purpose of that note there. Okay. As loads, freight, or cargo are picked up, delivered, and the carrier trucking company is paid first, an amount equal to the above stated, and you should put 8% here. So take and erase or delete delete percentage or flat fee and replace everything that's highlighted here, Mr. Ellis, with 8%.
Okay.
Will be payable to, and then freight lanes express. Okay, you got that. Either party, and then I would hit an enter. I would put this on a different line right here. This next sentence, I would hit enter and put it on a separate line. Either party has the right to end this agreement, because you want this to stick out. Either party has the right to end this agreement without cause at any time within, now you said 24 hours. That's a quick notice by written or email request. Sometimes it's 3 days, a week, 30 days, whatever, but the standard is 7 days. Okay. And then this is not an exclusive agreement or contract. In other words, the carrier has a right to work with any other dispatcher. You're not exclusive to them, right? They can work with any other dispatcher, and that's fine. So whichever dispatcher is finding them the better paying loads, that's the one they're going to choose. Just make sure it's you, right? Just make sure it's you, and you ain't got nothing to worry about as long as you do your job, right? And then down here is where the carrier, they're going to sign their signature, put their phone. Well, right here, where it says print, put this on the next line. Line it up a little bit different.
Okay.
Take this and put it down here on this line. So carrier print, they're going to print their name. They're going to sign their name. They're going to
Wait,
put.
so put carrier print just on the outside of the line here.
Yeah, just click your mouse on the C right here, capital C in carrier, and hit enter, and it's going to jump down to the next line.
Okay.
All right. And then put a space in between this carrier signature and that line right there. Put a gap between there. Or you could just put your cursor on this C and carrier signature and hit enter and let that jump down to the next line. Okay. So they're gonna print it, sign it, put their phone number and email. As a matter of fact, that's probably the best way to do it. Just put them all on separate lines. Carrier print one line, carrier signature another line, phone number one line, and email in one line. So 4 lines down. Okay. So it can separate. So it's 6 out. And then dispatching company, you put your information there and you put your signature there, or you print it there, but you get the point. And then the little note here is just a reminder to the carrier. When returning the dispatcher packet, which includes this completed dispatcher agreement, that's what this is, the carrier profile, and the limited power of attorney, please also include copies of the MC authority letter, which is what we need, the certificate of insurance, COI, and the W-9. And then in addition, matter of fact, you should put in addition, if you are working with a factoring company, please also include a copy of the factoring company's credit application so that they can run a credit check on the broker and send a notice of assignment if the credit is favorable. Thank you. In all rights reserved. So yeah. And you can please attach the following. That's just you basically repeating this note, MC authority, certificate of insurance, W-9. Okay. And that's the dispatcher agreement with the carrier. Oh, you already put it. It just jumped to another line. Now you're just getting into line spacing right here at this point. You'll pretty that up and dress it up a little bit. But yeah. Matter of fact, you can even remove this right here, because you already said it in the note right
Oh,
here.
okay, so you have to take that out.
Yeah, take that out, so that'll free up some space there for you. And that'll
Oh,
help you with the line spacing up here when you make these on separate lines, right? By removing the other ones. But that's the um, carrier agreement. The dispatcher and the carrier, the agreement between the dispatcher and the motor carrier. Any questions? We good?
the logo itself.
Logo is beautiful.
The logo is beautiful. Someone said the logo. Oh, the wall. The wall likes your logo. Okay, you got a reefer, you got a dry van, you got a flatbed on the road, like they racing. That's like Germany. That's like the Autobahn over in Germany. They're racing.
Right here.
The Autobahn has about 8 or 9 lanes in it. You ever seen the Autobahn? You ever been over Germany in the Autobahn?
I
Man,
think.
they're like body parts over there. You know how fast they be going on the Autobahn over in Germany?
Oh yeah.
Woo! But yeah. But yeah, you got the different types. That's good. The 3 major equipment types. I didn't even realize that. So I saw it. That's a reefer box truck right there. Reefer and like a box truck with a refrigerated unit on the front. This is a dry van, and that's a flatbed. Yeah, there you go. But that's the breakdown of one of the 3 documents, the main document of the 3 documents that make up the dispatcher packet. The other 2 are pretty simplistic. The carrier profile is pretty self-explanatory. The limited power of attorney is pretty self-explanatory. But this one here is going to bind you with your motor carrier, the actual contract between you and that carrier, explaining you and your services and your duties as a dispatcher, and explaining what you require of the motor carrier. That's what an agreement does, and it's legally binding. Once all signatures and scripts are there, it makes it legally binding, right? So
Now, as far as the website goes, because I done came across so many different things. Some like because it's dispatching as opposed to brokering. You'll hear, well, you don't really need it for dispatching. Some say, yeah, you might do, you don't. I mean,
starting out as a new dispatch service, if you got 5 or less carriers you're dispatching for, not having a website won't hurt you. But having a website, whether you have 5 or less or any carriers, having a website is always helpful to have. It just makes you more marketable and more. It just improves your brand
right.
as a company.
Because I thought about that too. Because along with all of the social media platforms, you have to put all this stuff on. Because man, I have to keep everything separate. However, my name appears on this, but at least not on my broker documents, except for I think the signature part. I have to go back. That's about it.
So the website you can leverage and the social media handles to point to your website as a way to market and brand your whole business model as a dispatch service. So you can have on your website, you can have a handle for Facebook, a social media handle for LinkedIn, X, or what's called Twitter, and Instagram, IG. So you can have little icons that point to and then of course you got to have those accounts set up. You got to have a Facebook account, you got to have a Twitter account, you got to have an Instagram account and a LinkedIn account. If you use,
I only did the Instagram account for dispatch, and I didn't do nothing for brokering yet. Because I was never just like social media. I just don't pay too much attention to it.
Right. So, and I agree with you. I agree with you not paying attention to a part, but if you use the business portion of it to leverage your company,
that's why I thought
it could be a good resource.
Yeah, for that reason, I was like, okay, well, it'll be for that. But
Right.
I mean, for some odd reason, all the other stuff seems to pop up on there.
Right. So you have to filter. Well, that's on the personal side. If you set up a business side, like a business Facebook, a business Instagram, a business Twitter, and a business LinkedIn, you can filter out the personal nonsense, people up there poking their lips out, taking pictures of themselves, and all this other goofy stuff. You can take all that stuff out, right? And you just market and
I
brand
that's
your
yeah, I
business.
signed up for business. Let me double check it right now because I could
Yeah. And while he's doing that, any other questions?
I could it's
All right.
it's here then.
Hopefully this training, this example of the dispatcher agreement and how it should be structured and outlined, helped someone else as well set up their or give them an idea of how to structure their back office dispatcher agreement using the templates. So, and again, I'm going to be doing I'm introducing a mentorship program at some point where I'm going to provide my time and resources a little bit more frequently as far as website design, document management, um, networking, accessing with different brokers and shippers, accessing to the Facebook resources, and more Zoom trainings for mentorship to kind of get you guys a little bit more acclimated. And it's going to be a virtual mentorship program as opposed to an in-person one because not everyone can get to Virginia to see me in person, but everyone can get to a Zoom call virtually and still get those same questions answered. Now, I will have in the future upcoming events in person where we can all get together, kind of a family reunion kind of thing, meet and greet kind of stuff, you know. Because, of course, I would like to meet everybody who I deal with. And I've met some of you. Some people are local, some people are like in the neighboring states like North Carolina, Maryland, DC, because I'm close to the DMV area. So, DC, Maryland, Virginia, they call it the DMV or Nova, Northern Virginia. So, but yeah, at some point I would want to shake each and every person's hands that I've trained over time. That's on my bucket list. So,
Find it here.
yeah. Oh yeah,
But
Jennifer's in the you're in the UP, right, Jennifer? Yeah. So, Mr. Ellis, you were saying?
no, I'm trying. Oh, my handle is dispatching 24, but it's you got the underscore at the after the PDIS
Mhm.
P underscore ATCHING 24.
That's the Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, IG. Okay. Send that to me in an email or text. I'll go ahead and look at it and I'll follow you. I'll follow you.
I think I have you on here. You should. Am I?
Oh, well, if you do, then send me a little message and I'll see it and then reply to it.
Okay, hang on. Let me see. Following.
It'll just be another way for us to stay connected.
Yeah, yeah, I got you on here. Wait, hold on. Let me. Where's the?
So we took care of both of your documents. So Mr. Ellis, so I figured I'd do them in the classes, the broker side and the dispatcher side. So it'll be kind of it'll benefit not only you, but others who may be in a similar position. So again, thank you. Uh, I see you got that legend on your chest, Marvelous Marvin Hagler.
Of course. I argue people to the death about haggling.
Well, he beat up my guy. I'm from Detroit, so he used to beat up Hitman Hearns all the time.
Oh, hey, anybody who say that Hagler wasn't the best of the non-heavyweights, so I can ask him. I always say, who would you put over Hagler? Whoever
No
you put
one.
over
The
Hagler.
reason why is because he had the ability to switch from southpaw to orthodox.
Yes, he
So,
did. And yep,
and in the middle of the
in
fight.
the middle of the fight, in the middle of the round. Yep.
So
Yep, people. Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So it's crazy. I saw one fight where he beat down Hearns. I was so mad, I almost cried.
Well, they only fought one time, but see, that's not the fight that I always tell people to look at. People say, you want to know how to define Hagler? I mean, when he fought Hearns, that was just 3 rounds of just